as I mentioned, we made changes from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26 in our agency allocations of 1.2 million. So if you think of half of fiscal year 25, half of fiscal year 26, then next year is full fiscal year 20, or half, the second half of 26, beginning of 27. So some of that is gonna also be reflected in the calendar year, because it's a half year and a half year. I'm open to any questions on that, and there's a motion on page 24.
Motion to approve. I move. Second.
Second.
Any questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. Right, moving along with this agenda, we have item 9,
Yeah, so at the top of page 26 is the problem gambling funds allocation. This is funding we received from the Ohio Department of Behavioral Health, formerly the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They changed their name as of October 1st. And this money is for the treatment and prevention and treatment for problem gambling. So the total allocation there, we received 143,000, and that 50% goes to treatment and 50% of that goes to prevention services. So Zeph Center has this program, the only one in the county that does these services. So they do a lot of screenings using an evidence-based screener for gambling, use disorder. They have done a lot of work with casinos. The casino here, they do a lot of table events to raise awareness on gambling disorder, and then they work with individuals and families who then have a diagnosable gambling disorder for treatment there. So you'll see a motion in the middle of page 26. Where this is just to accept the allocation and then additional 33,000, which is carried over from last fiscal year. So they didn't spend all the funds, we got permission from the state to use that to this fiscal year for a total allocation of 533.
we have a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Questions? I do have a question. I think, Elijah, you may have cleared up, but is this education funding or is it?
Both, yes. So the state gives us the allocation and dictates that 50% goes to treatment, 50% goes to prevention.
Any additional questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to item 10, health officer designation.
Jennifer as opposed to Jen.
I'm like, Jennifer, okay. Very good. Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm the Assistant Director of Programs and Services. And for your consideration, we have 3 new health officer applications that the advisory board approved on page 26. And then on page 27, at the very top, we have 1 renewal application. And we have also included in the demographics. And you will notice that there is a slight increase in the diversity over the last couple of months. And we've been working with our agencies to try to help identify people that would be appropriate for health officers to have that increase. And there is a motion on page 26.
Question. Is this mentioned December 24 on the breakdown?
Yeah, it's copied from Excel. So so sometimes that number shifts unintentionally.
All right, is there a motion to approve? Second? Any additional questions? Those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
It's a pleasant surprise to see the increase in addition. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for working on that.
That was Elijah.
Thank you, Elijah.
Very good. Moving on to item 11, agency grievance report, and I have Jennifer.
Yes, so every year, in the fiscal year, all of our funded agencies, they submit an annual grievance report. So what you are actually looking at is we have taken it and compiled all of their information into the different categories. And you will notice, St. Paul's has, quite a total of 213. The majority of that is from their payee program and people like requesting additional funding and having to follow the protocols. So you will see in the next one, it's breaking down by race and total demographics for all of the complaints. These complaints are usually all handled in-house by their client rights officer, and then they just submit the information to us. So there's no actual motion for this. This is just for your reference. Yes.
What, could you give me an example of when you say they just submit the information to us? What does that mean, such as?
So they get an Excel spreadsheet that looks exactly like this, that talks about dignity and respect, informed choice and treatment. And the client's rights officers, when the person comes to them, they ask for the information of what is going on. And then they base that and they put it into the appropriate categories for us. So that we don't actually get all of the information, they just submit this once a year to us.
How do we word some of these, if we see there's an upturn or a significant number in a specific category to review what is being done in the agency to see whether we have any issues with.
Yeah, so this report is what happens at the agency level. And so a client has a right to voice a grievance if they feel something's wrong. And fortunately, while that is a high number, the majority have been resolved by the agency. So the agency is able to address their concerns with the client rights officer. So it doesn't get to the level of the board. Because if it's not resolved at the agency level, clients have the right then to escalate the grievance up to the board, and then our client's rights officer would then do an investigation. And there's timelines stipulated in Ohio Revised Code on that to come to resolution. An additional level is if the issue is still not resolved, then it can go up to the Ohio Department of Behavioral Health for further investigation. So we don't get the individual details. We have been monitoring the program. There's been changes with how clients can access their money. They've moved back to paper checks and just the timing. So people are, you're messing with people's money. You're holding on to people's money. So people can naturally be upset about that. But we haven't gotten specific complaints up to our level. So these are being handled at the agency level.
Just for clarity, I wasn't really asking about any specific agency
Yeah.
listed or their numbers. I was really just more concerned about the general overall, how do we monitor when, you have somebody zeros all the way across.
Yeah, so a client can come directly to us and voice a grievance, and then we would work with the agency to kind of investigate. So really, on a month-to-month basis or a quarterly basis, our client's rights officer will meet with the agencies to see if there's any outliers or anything, but if the agency is able to handle the grievance in-house, then it kind of just stays in-house. We don't have involvement until it gets up to our level.
And would it be fair to assume that any paperwork that's given in any given agency to one of its clients who's making registering a grievance clearly indicates that they also have a right to come directly to us, and what the procedure is if they're not truly, if it's not resolved to their satisfaction at the agency level.
Yeah, and I will add that our client's rights officer goes to all the agencies and makes sure the appropriate signage is posted in a conspicuous space that tells you where all the places a client is able to file a grievance.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So, I have a question. This is the SPCC, that's St. Paul, correct?
Yes.
So, the amount of grievances is, of course, high. Can you give us an idea of what type of grievances they have? I know you said you don't know specifics, but.
They're really related to dignity and respect and informed choice of treatment. So those are kind of categories that fall under. So a client, there's a difference between a complaint and a grievance. A grievance has to relate to the client's rights that are outlined in Ohio Revised Code, and these are kind of the categories of that. So while clients probably have a lot more complaints, but they're not technically grievances. So
Okay.
these are the categories of those. Now, like the specific grievance might be, they didn't know they had to, for this instance, a specific grievance would that informed choice might be, they didn't know they had to fill out paperwork to request a check.
Okay.
So I have a question and a comment here. Question, are they still handling like 700 plus repayee individuals in their system? That's because they were huge. That was like one of the biggest in the country at one point.
They're still paying.
Oh, 400? Oh, they've come down. Okay, so my next is more like a comment for clarification. I've noticed like on page 29 on the graph where it says grievance consumer demographics, where you have Black, white, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, other. Is there a way to kind of like recalibrate that? Because sometimes on the census data it says Hispanic, Latino, white, brown, whatever. That's one. The other one is with the Arab population growing, I don't see that demographics here, which I think, I think most of them, from my experience, classify themselves as white. But then you're crossing over into another culture, language issues. And I think it would be nice to kind of capture that because that's a trend that's going up. And I think it's like a hidden trend there. So anyway, it's just an observation. I don't know if you guys are dealing with it.
So we're actually looking at probably updating.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I have a question. And I'm looking at, and I will be specific, I'm looking at St. Paul's with 213. And while you say a lot of those are related to the payee program, that still seems to me a lot, right? I mean, that would be a red flag for me. And the question that was asked is if the clients who are filing these grievances know what their rights are to move to the board, to the board level and then beyond. And you mentioned that there's signage, right? So is there anything that can help people that is it bilingual? And also, is there something for people that maybe may have literacy challenges? And so are they being verbally told that they have a right to move it beyond the agency level?
Yes, yeah, so, so each agency has a client rights officer.
Mhm.
Who handles those grievances and makes that kind of communication. So, yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the investigation, report, they're still not satisfied with the outcome. There's other options, including coming up with one.
Thank you.
On the, with this category addressing, two comments, does this affect the performance matrix or something dedicated, does this affect the funding? Because obviously the feeding program is really, it is, but it's not, the program or service we oversee, but don't directly fund. We do want to directly fund, okay, so does that affect the performance matrix or how?
It doesn't directly impact the performance metrics for that. It's part of something we talk about. There's complaints for these type of outliers. We do report those.
Thank you.
So therefore, there is a mechanism to they basically validate or invalidate things. You guys go to court or no?
No, we want to see all of these, because, unless they come up with a political mechanisms or something, to resolve the client rights issue.
I want to make a comment on this. I'm not trying to fan the fire at all, but if we see 200 complaints, on this report, more than just clients are noticing these things. We normally will see other systems starting to complain as well. And that's when we start to get phone calls at my level. So maybe Linda has somebody on her caseload that is having trouble getting a check.
Or they want the check early
Or
and
they
don't
would-
understand why they
Can't get it. So I start to get these calls. Or Elijah will get these calls, or Jennifer will get these calls, or Charlotta will get these calls, who's our manager of client rights and housing. After a certain amount, obviously we take notice, but we're also calling our connected peer at St. Paul's. So I'm calling Joe. Elijah's probably calling their person, Jennifer's calling their person, and we're saying, okay, trying to get an idea of what's going on. So that we can report back to the Linda House of the world. Okay, this is what's going on. And I do believe at a certain point during this year, and I might be mistaken, but I do believe it was early in this year, there was a coalition of residents that banded together to have to process a number of complaints on an ongoing basis. So there was a concerted effort to kind of get noticed. And that likely elevated the numbers considerably as well. I'm not talking about the legitimacy of that, of those complaints or not, because we don't see that data. But I do know that there was a whole group, there was a lot of transformation going on at St. Paul's at the time, including, I believe, searching property that people were not too thrilled about. And remember, St. Paul's does more than the payee program. They also are a residential program, and the only residential program besides standalone residential besides NPI on the list. So.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments? All right, agency performance report.
Yeah, we just wanted to provide an update. Julie was, Julie with our quality evaluation, presented the last month, the agency performance report, we did notice, we had a marked an agency not on track, so it would have been in red, the opportunity project. There was confusion between how we collect data between calendar year and fiscal year and how that gets reported out. We've re-reviewed the data and we've noticed that they're actually on track, so we just wanted to set the record straight that, the opportunity project is on track to meet their metrics for the fiscal year. So no motion with that, just some information.
Thank you for that clarification. Moving on to item 13. I have Michael, affirmative action annual report, please.
Thank you. This is our affirmative action report. This is mandated by ORC 340-12 that we will report on affirmative action includes goals for employment, effective utilization, including contracts and members of economically disadvantaged groups as defined in ORC. It also aligns with the amended House Bill 96, which went into effect September 30th. So this is something that you will see yearly that we are providing. On the next pages, start with page 29 and 30, we provide a summary so that you can begin to see how our numbers align with the census data for our county. We are leading the way and leading by example, and I think that's something that we can be proud of, especially for those of us who have been around for 10 to 11 years, and we see the growth and the progress of these numbers and where we were and where we have come to. So in this first graph, you can see from the call out, so this is the trustees, the number of trustees that's available, but you can see that we are ahead, in many cases, almost doubling the number compared to the census data. So for Hispanic Latino, it's 18%, African American, 35% compared to a 19%, right? So we are doing an excellent job where possible. And then there's areas where 0.33 or 0.003, which are very hard to reach. That doesn't mean it's impossible. That just simply means that, we still are reflective of the census data. And when opportunity arises for us, those are opportunities that we can look at for expansion. One of the things that I would like to address here as well is that we had the forethought in our requesting of information to ask for the Middle Eastern, the MENA, right? Middle Eastern, Northern African information. However, even though we collected it, there's no census data for us to layer that against. So we collected that information, but it's not reflected here because we wouldn't have had another category space to say, here's the numbers for us in that area. But again, we are on par with where we are with the census data. So really good job being ahead. Turn the page, you'll see the same thing with the staff. Again, in many cases, we're always ahead. We're sometimes almost doubling. Again, when you look at Hispanic, Latino, Black, African American, white, to Jesus's question earlier, if someone was to check as a Hispanic or Latino, the white box, they would just go on the white because that's what they chose to identify as. And so it's how they self-identify. It's how we're collecting that information and giving them an opportunity to express that to us, down to the 2+ races, or even if they want to say unknown or other. So there was a couple, for example, that will fall in that category throughout the report. So again, MENA is collected information, but it doesn't have a census tract for us to compare it to. So then we look at next at the bottom of page 31, funded agency trustees. This again is another area where there's significant growth if you've been around a while, right? And so this number of Hispanic, Latino has increased, African American number has increased. The number of whites have actually gone down for trustees in our system. And you can see now that there's some percentages there in those other categories, such as Asian or American Native, Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islanders. And honestly, for the most part, it is very close to again, what the census looks like. For some of these numbers, it's very difficult, but I think this is still something that we can be proud of, the progress that we see taking place within our system overall. When you look at the staff agencies and you start to look at staff, the numbers level out a little bit more, right? So it's easier to bring the trustees in than it is on the staff side. The numbers are still ahead of the census, but it's a lot more aligned and very more closely related to what the census is. Down at the bottom, you really can't see that. We have it online. So if you want to see those numbers, you can. And this is me just kind of giving you a snapshot of, here's the proof to what I'm about to tell you. While the numbers, you need the double magnifying glass, right? But it is online. You can pull it. You can expand it and look at it. Here's what you're going to notice. Two things that we wanted you to see, air quotes by C, because we know you don't see it, that we tracked it by demographic for race and sex. So you can see African-American female, Latinx male, right? Where they are, what position they're most likely to be working in. And what you will notice is that while the system is getting better at hiring, the minorities are still in the lower level job positions, right? And so our opportunity for growth there as a system is finding pipelines and opportunities to advance minorities through the system, move them up through management, move them into more clinical opportunities that are available. But as far as aligning to the demographic, aligning to have a representation, those numbers are there. So it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, we're doing a very good job as far as representation and growth. You can see that we have led the way as a board with trustees and staff, which is a clear signal to our system of what our expectations are, that we haven't backed down on what we're expecting, what we're looking at, and how it can be done. But there is opportunity for growth in the area of strengthening, development, education, training. And that's something I think we're all kind of aware of, but at least we're making those strides and beginning to make the progress so that there is opportunity to push people along within the system, right? We went from them not being represented at all, so now they're represented, and we need to now figure out ways to work together. And there's no motion. This is for information only. So if there's any questions, I'll gladly answer. Thank you.
Michael, quick question again. The census, I should know this, but what census year are we?
This was 2020. I'm pretty sure. I think it's on there. But I'm pretty, this was, 2020 was what Julie used. Yeah, that's our last, I believe, actual census track data.
It's not amended for 2025.
Right, yeah. It's against the last actual, census.
There's projections. They amended and stuff. That
Yeah.
doesn't change very much.
No, we try to go with the raw data so that it's as reflective as possible.
Thank you.
I believe that, which is fantastic, numbers have increased. And I think it's also because of the education that mental illness can recover for it, and that's, you don't have to be ashamed. Many of our minorities look at it as shameful. And so I think the education that we processed through the years, that's really helped develop stronger, development in our trustees and all agencies. And so it's kudos to us, to the staff and to the board, because I can tell you, I've been around a long time, and it wasn't like that when I first started. So I see very good progress. Excellent progress.
I was sharing with our team, for minorities, very often social workers, social work has a negative connotation in minority communities because even in the movies, it's negative. And it's negative in the TV shows. So I think you're right with that education and breaking down the walls of stigma, it does carry over into staff and trustee numbers as well, I believe.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? All right, move to open session. Richard?
While Richard is settling in, I do want to mention that we sent you a link to the trustee survey. Only 6 of you at the time I last checked completed that survey. So if you could please complete that. Also at your table If you don't have one, please complete, if you have one, please complete the conflict of interest statement. We're gonna be doing those annually from now on. It's the same statement that you completed when you were oriented as a trustee. And if you don't have one, please raise your hand. We'll make sure you get one right now.
At one government center, there was a major catastrophe at the city council, and by that I mean the air conditioning on the 21st floor went out. They had no air conditioning, and they were hosting a bunch of people from junior achievement, so they brought everybody downstairs to the first floor. I think they bought out Jimmy John's sandwich shop. They brought in just bags and bags of sandwiches and held it on the first floor, and so everybody had a good time. And other than that, everything's just fine at city council. So you'll probably see it on Channel 13 tonight at the 11 o'clock County Commissioners meeting. They heard a very good presentation, about 40 minutes long, on why our electric rates are going up. I'm not going to go into detail. Trust me, there's some darn good reasons, and it has to do with A&I and all the demands that these smartphones are making on the power grid, and somebody's got to pay for it. And basically what the county commissioners were told this morning, there's very little that local governments can do about this. For the next 2 or 3 years, you are going to see some skyrocketing electrical rates. And then at the end of that meeting, county coroner gave his presentation on his budget. I believe he asked for like a 2% increase, and everything went pretty well. And then at 2 o'clock, they had the sheriff's department. If you will remember last year, the sheriff walked out. I'm going to try to describe, guess who wasn't there? I'm going to try and describe what I saw. The sheriff wasn't there. He had 3 employees come, and they brought the official therapy dog with him. This is, his name's Moby, and he's this little yellow lab, and they have a little vest for him with a badge on it. And all the county commissioners loved him, and they presented him with the official chew toy. Well, they actually have an official Lucas County chew toy. They give it to all the dogs that came in. And after everybody in the room petted the dog and had a good time in it, they said, okay, we're ready for your presentation. And there was this awkward silence. They said, we're waiting for the sheriff. So we waited a few more minutes. He finally showed up. He went straight to the podium and just introduced the employees that were already there. I don't know what to say. Neither he nor anybody gave an explanation as to why he was tardy. I know he's a busy man, but somebody should have said something. So then he turned it over to his staff. And Lindsay was below, gave the presentation, did a great job. And the bottom line is they are asking for an increase of $7.9 million. They say that 7.1 of that would be for wages and employees, and the 800,000 would be for a bunch of other stuff they need. They gave a great presentation. What they said was that just this year, 47 employees have left, and out of that, 23 of them went to other law enforcement. They said this is unsustainable. We cannot hold on to our sheriff's department employees. We've got to do something. And I'd like to think that the county commission, everybody wanted to know what Pete was going to say. He said, we're off to a good start. You know, nobody walked out, so I'll put that in the plus column. But there was nobody from the TV stations there. You'll probably read it in tomorrow's Blade. They'll go into a lot more detail. But yeah, they gave a lot of information to the county commissioners. It's just not sustainable to keep the sheriff's department at its current budget. Okay, and I'm being very brief here. The Plan Commission will meet at 2 p.m. on Thursday. They're going to hear from Edwina Butts, who runs 2 facilities. She runs a drug facility over on 316 Michigan. It's right across from the library. It's notorious for its loitering problem. At any given time of the day, you might see 5, 6 people loitering there. She's going to move that in addition to a treatment facility that she has at 2345 Dorr Street. And she's going to put both of them in 4 parcels over on Douglas near Central. She needs a special use permit. That's probably just the first step. But I would imagine that there will, I don't know if there's neighborhood groups there, but this will be a big facility that will offer a wide variety of beds and treatment and all kinds of financial assistance for people with substance abuse problems. That will be heard at 2 p.m. This Thursday. And the other thing is they will, once again, they've been doing this since February 2019, revisit the whole group home issue. If I understand correctly, right now, any group home that is within 500 feet of another one is automatically disqualified. The staff has to immediately say, you know, you won't get it, and that's probably the way it's going to be voted. So now they'll get rid of that. They'll keep the 500 feet spacing requirement, but the staff will be able to make whatever recommendation they want, however many, you know, provisions they want to put in there. Then it'll be voted on first by Plan Commission and then go to City Council. But it looks to me like the 500-foot spacing agreement, it's gone. I mean, they'll keep it in the Toledo Municipal Code, but it looks to me like they're getting rid of it. And I don't even know if this has anything to do with that other facility that I've mentioned to you. This would be 835 Belmont. It's for at-risk youth, and that area is really saturated. It should have been heard last month. I'm told it's on hold. It hasn't been withdrawn. It's on hold. I'm guessing until they make some decision on this. So it'll be heard by Plan Commission Thursday, then go to the November City Council meeting, and it looks like they will probably get rid of the 500 feet spacing requirements for group homes. At least now, you're almost certain not to get it, but it looks like they're going to make some major changes in Toledo Municipal Code. So, thank you for listening.
Any further comments? All right, stand adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.